The silent death. The coffee was still hot when Captain Sarah Chen's world changed forever. She sat in the command chair of the cargo vessel Stellar Dawn, reviewing shipping manifests for their upcoming delivery to New Brisbane. The colony had placed a large order for medical supplies and farming equipment, standard stuff for a growing settlement. Sarah had made this run dozens of times over the past 5 years, watching New Brisbane grow from a small outpost to a thriving world with over 3 million inhabitants. The first distress signal came through at 0347 hours, ship time. The communication. Officer Lieutenant James Park looked up from his console with confusion written across his face. The signal was fragmented, broken by static and interference that shouldn't exist in this sector of space. "Captain, I'm getting an emergency transmission." "From New Brisbane Control," James said, adjusting his headset. "The signal's badly degraded, but they're reporting some kind of attack." Sarah set down her coffee and moved to the communications station. New Brisbane was still 3 days away at their current speed, but they were the closest human vessel to the colony. Through the crackling static, a terrified voice emerged. "This is Colony Administrator David Walsh. Massive unknown vessels have entered our system. They appeared without warning, no response to our hails. These ships are enormous, unlike anything in our databases. They're moving toward the civilian sectors. We need immediate assistance. Repeat. New Brisbane is under attack by unknown hostile forces." The message cut off abruptly, replaced by empty static. Sarah felt her stomach drop. New Brisbane had minimal defensive capabilities, just a few patrol ships and some orbital platforms designed more for asteroid deflection than warfare. If someone was attacking the colony, the 3 million people there were sitting ducks.
"James, try to re-establish contact. Send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them New Brisbane is under attack and we're proceeding to assist." Sarah turned to her navigator. "Martinez, plot a course for New Brisbane, maximum speed."
The Stellar Dawn changed heading, her engines pushing as hard as they could manage. For the next 6 hours, they tried repeatedly to contact New Brisbane. Each attempt met only silence. No colony control, no civilian broadcasts, no automated beacons. It was as if New Brisbane had simply vanished from the galaxy. When they finally arrived at the New Brisbane system, Sarah understood why the communications had stopped. Where a thriving colony should have been, they found only death. The orbital stations were gone, reduced to scattered debris that glittered in the light of the system's star. The planet's surface, once dotted with cities and farms, was now a patchwork of glass craters and burning wastelands. "Jesus Christ," whispered Martinez, staring at the scanner readings. "The entire northern continent is gone, just melted." Sarah ordered a full sensor sweep of the system. What they found made her feel sick. No life signs from the planet's surface. No escape pods in space. No survivors hiding in the asteroid belt. 3.2 million people had lived on New Brisbane yesterday. Today the planet was a tomb. They were preparing to send a message to Earth when Lieutenant Park detected a faint emergency beacon from one of the planet's moons. A single escape pod, its occupant barely alive. Sarah ordered an immediate rescue operation, hoping against hope that someone had survived to tell them what happened. The woman they pulled from the escape pod was barely conscious, suffering from radiation exposure and dehydration. Dr. Rebecca Torres, the ship's medic, worked frantically to stabilize her while Sarah waited anxiously for answers. It took 3 hours before the survivor was strong enough to speak. Her name was Elena Rodriguez, and she had been a teacher at New Brisbane Elementary School. When the attack began, she had been leading a field trip to the Geological Survey Station on Kepler Moon. The moon's position on the far side of the planet had shielded them from the initial assault, but they had watched through the station's telescopes as their world died. Elena's voice was barely a whisper as she described what she had witnessed. The alien ships had arrived without warning, massive vessels that dwarfed anything in the human fleet. They had ignored all attempts at communication, instead beginning a systematic destruction of every human settlement on the planet. "They didn't want our resources," Elena said, tears streaming down her face. "They weren't trying to capture territory or enslave us. They were exterminating us, like we were insects. The weapons they used, they turned everything to glass. Cities, farms, Forests, everything. They even targeted the refugee camps where people were trying to flee. Sarah knelt beside Elena's medical bed, her hands clenched into fists. Did they say anything? Any communication at all? Elena nodded slowly. Near the end, when most of the planet was already burning, they sent a single message. It was broadcast on all frequencies in perfect English. They said, "Lesser species contaminate the galaxy. The Vashatar cleanse what must be purified. Humanity will kneel or join the silence." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. This wasn't a territorial dispute or a resource conflict. The aliens, the Vashatar, saw humans as vermin to be eliminated. 3 million people had died not for what they had done, but simply for existing. Elena continued her account, describing how the few survivors on the moon had watched helplessly as the Vashatar ships methodically scoured every inch of New Brisbane's surface. When they were finished, the aliens had departed as suddenly as they had arrived, leaving behind only death and glass. The journey back to Earth took 8 days. Sarah sent hourly updates to Fleet Command, but she knew no words could truly convey the horror of what they had discovered. Elena spent most of the trip in medical care, but when she was strong enough, she recorded her testimony for the authorities. Every detail of the Vashatar attack was documented, analyzed, and transmitted ahead to Earth. When the Stellar Dawn finally docked at Luna Station, Sarah was shocked by what she found waiting. The normally busy commercial port had been transformed into a military installation. Warships were docked at every berth and the corridors buzzed with uniformed personnel. Admiral Patricia Voss met them at the airlock, her face grim with purpose. "Captain Chen, thank you for bringing Miss Rodriguez home safely. Her testimony has been invaluable. The President wants to debrief you both immediately." As they made their way through Luna Station, Sarah noticed the changes everywhere. Civilian contractors were being replaced by military engineers. Cargo bays were being converted into weapons storage. Even the advertisements on the walls had been replaced with recruitment posters bearing a simple message: "Remember New Brisbane." The debriefing took place in a secure conference room with officials from every branch of the human government. Elena repeated her story for the assembled leaders, her voice growing stronger with each telling. When she finished, the room fell, silent for a long moment. President Maria Santos finally spoke, her words measured and precise. "Ladies and gentlemen, we face an enemy that sees us as nothing more than pests to be eliminated. They have murdered 3.2 million of our citizens without provocation or mercy. They expect us to kneel or die." The president stood, her eyes blazing with determination. "They have made a grave miscalculation. Humanity does not kneel. We do not go quietly into extinction. If the Vashtar want a war, they shall have one, but they will learn that when you threaten human children, you awaken something they cannot comprehend." Admiral Voss activated a holographic display showing ship construction schedules that boggled the mind. Operation Darkened Sky is already underway. Every shipyard in human space is working around the clock. Every factory has been converted to military production. We are building the largest fleet in human history. Sarah stared at the numbers floating in the air. 700,000 warships. The scale was almost impossible to comprehend, but she could see from the faces around the table that this was no bluff. Humanity was mobilizing everything it had. Elena Rodriguez, the sole survivor of New Brisbane, looked up at the display with tears in her eyes. "Will it be enough?" she asked quietly. President Santos placed a gentle hand on Elena's shoulder. "Miss Rodriguez, the Vashtar destroyed one human colony. They killed 3 million innocent people. In response, we are building 700,000 instruments of war. Each ship will carry the names of New Brisbane's dead. Each crew will know exactly what they're fighting for." The president's voice hardened. "The Vashatar wanted to show us our place in the universe. Now we're going to show them theirs. They think we're vermin. They're about to discover that sometimes vermin bite back, and when they do, the bite is lethal." As Sarah left the briefing, she thought about Elena's question. Would 700,000 ships be enough? Looking at the determination in every face she passed, seeing the fury and purpose that had transformed peaceful humanity into something harder and more dangerous. Sarah realized the aliens had made a terrible mistake. They had shown humans what extinction looked like. Now humanity was going to return the favor. The Iron Response 6, months after New Brisbane became a cemetery, Chief Engineer Marcus Webb stood in the observation deck of the Titan shipyards orbiting Mars and witnessed something that would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. The space around the red planet was alive with construction on a scale that defied belief. Hundreds of massive shipyards worked day and night, their automated systems churning out warships at a rate that seemed almost magical. Marcus had spent 20 years building civilian vessels, peaceful ships designed to carry families to new worlds and bring back the resources that kept humanity prosperous. Now he was overseeing the construction of humanity's vengeance, and the ships taking shape around him were beautiful in their terrible purpose. The vessel directly in front of him stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull bristling, with weapon emplacements and armored plates thick enough to stop anything the Vashatar could throw at them. It was designated the New Brisbane's Wrath, the first of the new Retribution-class battleships. Every surface was covered with the names of the colony's dead, 3 million names etched in metal that would carry their memory to the stars. "Status report, Marcus," came a voice behind him. He turned to see Dr. Priya Kamal approaching, her tablet displaying the latest production figures. Priya had been humanity's leading theoretical physicist before New Brisbane. Now she was the chief architect of the most advanced military technology the galaxy had ever seen. "We're ahead of schedule across all yards," Marcus replied, pulling up his own display. "Mars facilities will complete their 50,000th ship tomorrow. Luna's at 48,000. The belt operations are pumping out 200 ships a day. Even the civilian yards at Alpha Centauri have been converted and are contributing to the fleet." Priya nodded, making notes on her tablet. "And the technology integration?" Marcus smiled grimly. "That's the beautiful part. Remember how the Vashatar left some wreckage behind when they glassed New Brisbane? Our people have been very busy reverse engineering their technology." They walked through the construction facility, past assembly lines where human workers and automated systems worked together with unprecedented efficiency. The war effort had united humanity in ways that decades of peace never could. Every nation, every colony, every corporation had contributed everything they could to the fleet. In the research section, Dr. Kamal showed Marcus the fruits of 6 months of intensive development. The alien wreckage from New Brisbane had provided invaluable insights into Vashatar technology, but human engineers had done more than simply copy their designs. "Their energy shields are powerful but inefficient," Priya explained, indicating a holographic display showing shield harmonics. "We've improved the design by 40%. Our ships can maintain full defensive screens 3 times longer than Vashatar vessels." "What about their weapons?" Marcus asked. "Crude but effective," Priya replied. "They rely on brute force rather than precision. Their plasma cannons can devastate unprotected targets, but they're slow to recharge and overheat quickly. We've solved both problems while increasing damage output by 30%. But the real breakthrough was in propulsion technology. The Vashatar ships were fast, but human engineers had found ways to improve their faster-than-light drives while reducing power consumption. The new human fleet would be able to travel farther, faster, and fight longer than anything the aliens had ever encountered. As they toured the facilities, Marcus was struck by the transformation that had occurred throughout human space. Civilian factories had been converted to produce military components. Entertainment companies were now designing advanced targeting systems. Even restaurants had been reorganized to produce the specialized rations that would feed the crews of 700,000 warships. The most impressive sight was in the personnel training centers. Admiral Thomas Kane, chosen to command the Retribution fleet, had established training facilities on every human world. Volunteers had come forward in numbers that exceeded all expectations. For every position available on the fleet, there were 10 qualified applicants. Marcus found Admiral Kane reviewing tactical simulations in the command center of the orbital facility. Kane was a career military officer who had spent most of his life preparing for conflicts that never came. The destruction of New Brisbane had changed that forever. Admiral, the first wave ships are ready for crew assignment, Marcus reported. Kane looked up from his displays, his weathered face showing the strain of the past 6 months. How many? 300,000 ships fully operational, another 200,000 completing final systems checks. The remainder will be ready within the month. Admiral Kane stood and walked to the observation window, looking out at the forest of ships stretching to the horizon. You know, Marcus, I used to worry that humanity was getting soft. Centuries of peace, exploration, building new worlds. I thought we'd forgotten how to fight. And now? Marcus asked. Now I realize I was wrong. We didn't forget how to fight. We just forgot why we needed to. The Vashatar reminded us. The Admiral activated a communication channel that connected to every ship in the growing fleet. His voice would be heard by hundreds of thousands of crew members preparing for humanity's first interstellar war. This is Admiral Kane to all fleet personnel. 6 months ago, an alien species called the Vashatar attacked one of our colonies, without warning or provocation. They murdered 3.2 million innocent people, including children, simply because they considered us inferior. They expected us to kneel or die. The Admiral's voice hardened. Today, I stand before the largest military fleet in human history. 700,000 ships built by the combined effort of our entire species. Each vessel carries the names of New Brisbane's dead. Each crew member knows exactly what we're fighting for. Marcus watched through the observation windows as crews across the fleet stood at attention, listening to their commander's words. The Vashatar think they know what humans are. They think we're weak because we prefer peace. They think we're cowards because we try to solve problems with words instead of weapons. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Admiral Kane paused, letting his words sink in across the fleet. Tomorrow we depart for Vashatar space. We will show them that when you threaten human children, you don't get to walk away. We will demonstrate that peace is not weakness but a choice, and when that choice is taken away from us, we become something our enemies cannot comprehend. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. Marcus looked out at the ships that filled the space around Mars, each one a testament to humanity's refusal to submit to extinction. 3 days later, the first wave of the human retribution fleet departed the solar system. 200,000 warships, each one more advanced than anything the Vashatar had ever built, headed toward alien space with a simple mission: find the enemy and destroy them. The Vashatar had maintained surveillance posts throughout the border regions, confident that any human response would be weak and easily defeated. The first alien base to encounter the human fleet sent a single, panicked transmission before being obliterated by concentrated fire from 50 human ships. Unknown vessels of overwhelming number, weapons superior to all calculations, defensive, systems ineffective. This station will not survive. Warn the transmission cut off as the alien base became an expanding cloud of superheated plasma. The pattern repeated across a dozen systems. Vashatar outposts, supply depots, and patrol fleets encountered the human advance and were systematically destroyed. The aliens had expected to face primitive vessels crewed by panicked civilians. Instead, they found themselves outgunned, outmaneuvered, and completely outclassed by ships that represented the culmination of human engineering and the fury of a species pushed too far. In the Vashatar Homeworld's command center, Fleet Master Korthak studied the reports with growing disbelief. In 6 months, the humans had built a fleet larger than the combined navies of a dozen species. Their technology was not only equal to Vashatar systems, but superior in every measurable way. How is this possible? Korthak demanded of his advisors. The humans were supposed to be primitives. We destroyed one of their worlds with minimal effort. His chief scientist, Dr. Veltar, consulted his data tablets nervously. Fleetmaster, it appears we underestimated their industrial capacity and technological adaptability. The humans have reverse-engineered our designs and improved upon them. Their ships are faster, better armed, and more numerous than our own. How many ships do they have? Korthak asked. Current estimates suggest 700,000 vessels, with production continuing at an accelerated pace. The command center fell silent. The entire Vashatar fleet numbered less than 60,000 ships, spread across their empire. They had become overconfident, used to dealing with species that collapsed after a single demonstration of force. Admiral, Kane's fleet continued its advance, methodically destroying every Vashatar installation they encountered. But the human commander was not content with simple destruction. Each conquered system received the same message, broadcast on all frequencies in the Vashatar language. This is Admiral Thomas Kane of the Human Defense Fleet. You destroyed New Brisbane and murdered 3 million innocent people. You called, as lesser beings, and demanded we kneel. We are here to deliver humanity's response. The message continued, its tone becoming harder with each word. Every ship you see carries the names of those you killed. Every weapon we fire is fired in their memory. You wanted to show us our place in the universe. Now we're showing you yours. The galaxy is big enough for many species, but there is no room for those who target the innocent. The final words of the transmission became legendary among both human and alien civilizations. You thought we were vermin to be exterminated. You were right about one thing, we are vermin. But when vermin are cornered, when their young are threatened, they become something else entirely. They become the thing that larger predators learn to fear. Welcome to the human response. As the human fleet advanced deeper into Vashatar space, other alien civilizations watched with growing amazement and respect. The species that had seemed so peaceful, so focused on exploration and trade, had revealed teeth that could tear apart empires. The Vashtar had wanted to demonstrate their superiority by destroying a single human colony. Instead, they had awakened, something they could never have imagined, an entire species unified in purpose, armed with superior technology, and motivated by the simple desire to ensure that New Brisbane's children would never be forgotten. The war was far from over, but across the galaxy a new truth was being recognized. Humanity had tried peace and been rewarded with genocide. Now they were trying war, and the results were becoming clear to everyone. Never threaten human children. The lesson was being written in burning starships across the galaxy, and it would be remembered for millennia to come.